Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to our discussion today on diversity, equity, and inclusion at Boston College Law School. My name is Lisa Brathwaite, and I'm the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Programs. My role is to lead the collaborative effort of the law school community in providing a diverse, equitable, and inclusive environment committed to the success of our students. I work with colleagues across student-facing offices to support the recruitment, retention, academic and professional development of traditionally underrepresented populations. As a new member of the law school community, I can tell you that it's a very warm and welcoming community, and I hope you're able to sense that as you spend some time with us this afternoon. With that being said, I'd like to take a moment to address a few housekeeping notes and then we'll get underway. First, I'd like to remind you all that this is a Zoom webinar, so you can hear us and you can see us, but we can't see you. The initial session is going to be recorded for those who will not be able to attend, but the breakout sessions with student organizations will not be recorded in order to encourage safe spaces for all to talk freely. No administrators or faculty will be present in these breakout sessions. They are intended for you to have an open discussion with current students and get a better sense of their experience at Boston College Law. We will spend about 35 to 40 minutes in our formal presentation, and then you'll hear from Dean Vincent Rougeau, as well as Wahanas leaders, Chineri and Elaine, and you'll have the chance to ask questions of the group before we invite you to join separate Zoom meetings to talk directly with Wahanas organization leaders. The links to the meetings will be posted in the chat, both now and again at the end of the main session. The chat is open to anyone to introduce themselves and talk freely. For the Q&A portion of the event, please use the Q&A module at the bottom of your screen to ask questions. Assistant Dean of Graduate Enrollment Management, Sean McShay, is also here to answer any admission-specific questions you might have. Dean McShay, would you like to say a quick hello?
Absolutely. Thank you, Lisa. And hello, everyone. Welcome to BC Law and welcome to this awesome opportunity to learn more about diversity, equity, and inclusion in the BC Law community. You're going to learn a lot about the things that we take to heart here in the development of our community. And again, diversity is a community-wide opportunity of engagement. It is important to us all. We all bring something to that table. So I'm excited to answer any questions that you might have as they relate to admissions along the way. And I've placed my background, I've placed the campus so that for those of you who've not been able to visit us, you can have a chance to just see what the campus looks like. This is our 40-acre campus. So it's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you so much. And I'm excited to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean McShay. Now, it's my honor to introduce our Dean, Vincent Rougeau. Dean Rougeau has been at Boston College Law School for over 10 years. In addition to his role as Dean, he is also the inaugural director of the Boston College Forum on Racial Justice in America. We're also extremely proud to say that he is now also the president of the Association of American Law Schools, which is the main governing body of all law schools in the country. Despite his many leadership responsibilities, Dean Rougeau understands the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion on campus and is joining us today to talk about the strength of our BC Law JD program and our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Dean Rougeau.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa, and welcome to all of you. It's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. And as Lisa mentioned, I'm not only the Dean, I also run the university's Forum on Racial Justice in America, which is a vehicle for BC to engage in the issue of racial justice as a community through conversation, active listening, and meaningful change. It's also a platform for Boston College to emerge as a leader in academic engagement on issues of racial justice across its departments, schools, centers, and institutes, with the goal of dismantling structural racism in this country and building a foundation for meaningful participation in American life for all people. Now, built into the DNA of every school at BC is a commitment to serving society, regardless of what kind of career you choose. Big law, business, government, or nonprofit. This goes back to the institution's Jesuit mission and a focus on justice, equality, and caring for others. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is also essential to the mission of this law school, the university, and the profession. This is something I want to emphasize as we celebrate Black History Month, and it's particularly important considering the more recent events that have occurred in our country, both in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement and the assault on our democracy in our nation's capital. So with that in mind, I'd like to give you a brief overview today of what we feel sets us apart from other law schools. First, academic rigor. We're going to surround you with the best and the brightest, and we're going to challenge you and push you to achieve more than you thought possible. But we do it in a collaborative, warm, and supportive environment meant to build you up, not to tear you down. This is why our students tend to say that they love law school. Not that it's all fun all the time, but because we all work hard together to help each other reach our goals. It's also why our faculty is consistently ranked very high in specialty rankings, like number 8 for best professors from Princeton Review, and our overall experience is ranked highly in lists such as best quality of life. So this creates a community that is especially tight-knit, and it's why our alumni also speak so fondly about their 3 years with us. Again, this is not a place where you suffer through your time just to get that degree and advance your career. At BC, your law school years mean something more than that. You make lifelong friends, and some of them are your professors. So why is this? It has to do with the Jesuit tradition I mentioned earlier. We honor the concept of cura personalis, or care for the whole person. This goes deep into our roots, and it informs how we teach, how we mentor, and how we collaborate and support each other. Faculty invite students into their homes, help them make connections, advise them on important life choices. We have faculty who have officiated at their students' weddings and who keep in touch years after graduation. Discernment is an important concept for understanding what sets Jesuit education apart. Assisting you in your discernment process means we want to help you find your passion, discover what moves and motivates you, and lead you to what brings you joy in life and in your career. So what's the result of our approach? We graduate leaders who go out and change the world in many different ways. Our alumni include former Secretary of State John Kerry and Senator Ed Markey, former US Attorney Deborah Yang, Hisao Kushi, the co-founder of Peloton, and Ray Mercedes, the Senior VP at Univision, just to name a few. We have alumni at Pixar, Major League Baseball, and of course, many are leading nonprofits and many more are partners in major law firms. But our concept of leadership means our graduates are team-oriented leaders rather than top-down managers. They have a collaborative, roll up your sleeves and lead by example type of approach. They have very high emotional intelligence, and that's why we have such a good reputation among employers. Everyone wants to work with BC Law grads because they fit right in with the team and they just get it. So as I've mentioned, this leads to really varied and exciting career prospects for all of our graduates. Again, we focus on this concept of discernment or helping you discover your own unique path to a career that is fulfilling for you. And Boston is a real asset in this process. The city has been transformed over the last few decades into a global hub, a metropolis really, that provides many valuable professional experiences for our students. I also want to make sure to mention our career services operation. The CSO is one of the very best in the country, and that is demonstrated by our employment statistics. We consistently punch above our weight in real law jobs, the majority in large and prestigious law firms, as well as business, government, and nonprofits. Our 92.7% overall employment rate is made up of 89.5% of real long-term, full-time, JD required or advantage positions. And our alumni network, due to all the things I've described to you already, is one of the strongest and most loyal anywhere. So let me circle back to where I began. Everything I've just said is particularly important in terms of our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We want each and every student to feel fully invested and included as an equal and valued part of our community. Our care for the whole person approach means we're focused on each individual's success, as well as on how that individual fits into an integrated whole. We value diverse perspectives and backgrounds because it makes for better decisions and it makes for better lawyers who have a better understanding of their world and their place in it. This is why we've put a lot of emphasis on over the past few years on improving our support for DEI on campus. And our students have really helped us achieve some great things in this regard. Some of them are on this webinar today. And we've hired Lisa, whom you've just met, as our Director of DEI Programs. And we're in the process of hiring an Associate Dean for overseeing DEI at BC Law, who will be part of our senior leadership team and who will work with Lisa and the faculty and staff to continue to evolve our curriculum and our programming on campus. We also see a duty to educate more diverse lawyers to expand diversity in the profession and to provide those viewpoints in leadership positions throughout society. By this, I mean people who understand the barriers to equal justice and fairness in today's world and who want to fight for change. Today, more than ever, we feel that a values-based legal education training lawyers to make a real difference in the world is crucial. The law and lawyers provide the foundation for a truly just society. Just look at the recent events at the Capitol and the assaults we've seen on ensuring equal access to the right to vote. We must protect the rule of law and fight for justice and equality for all, and good lawyers should be the soldiers in this fight. And at this point, I just want to take a minute to provide a little bit of a personal note about what's been happening over the last few months here in our country and what we've been experiencing as a society. When I saw the storming of the Capitol, I had a very visceral and emotional reaction that brought me back to photos and stories of lynch mobs, vigilantes often whipped up by lies and violent lawlessness, killing and destruction. And I remembered that my own father spent over 6 weeks in solitary confinement when he was 18 years old because he challenged racial segregation in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And once he was released, he devoted many, many more years of his life after that organizing Black people to vote in the South. It's amazing to me that we still have people in power trying to take that right away. And it pains me to see lawyers participating in efforts to limit the franchise so that the will of the people in this democracy is thwarted and suppressed. So that's why we are very focused on supporting our community here at BC Law during this challenging time. We've been hosting regular town halls and webinars exploring these subjects and encouraging one-on-one conversations between students, staff, and faculty. Our goal is to make sure everyone feels heard, and also to continue to express the importance of the rule of law and the role of lawyers in the fight against injustice and the movement for change. So I thank you for being here today with us. I'm looking forward to getting to know you better and to welcoming you, many of you, I hope, to campus next fall. So now with that, I'd like to turn it back to Lisa for the next part of our program.
Thank you, Dean Rougeau. I'd like to introduce two of our Wahanas leaders, Chineri Ogocheri and Elaine Lee. Wahanas is our own term for defining DEI student organizations at BC Law and includes students who identify as members of the LGBTQ+ community, Black, Latinx, Asian, South Asian, Middle Eastern, and Native American communities. Wahanas has its own leadership, which speaks to its importance to us as this broader philosophical context that Dean Rougeau outlined. Wahanas is an example of the law school's commitment to engaging students in the community and in collaborative initiatives across diverse interests and cultures. Let me turn it over to our student leaders who are here to share more about Wahanas and student organizations in detail.
Thank you, Lisa, for that introduction. As Lisa mentioned, my name is Chineri, and I'm one of the Wahanas directors along with Elaine. Just to provide a brief synopsis of what Wahanas is, it is a term at the law school that was inspired by the undergrad's use of the term Ahana, which was coined in 1979 by two students who thought that the Wahana acronym celebrated the cultural differences present in our society. In recognition of this term, the law school adopted the term, added a few letters and identities to the acronym, and thus a student-led organization named Wahanas was created. We provide academic success and career programming primarily for those identities encompassed in our acronym. These identities are represented by our affiliated affinity organizations, which is a PULSA focused on our Asian Pacific law students, BALSA for our African American / Black law students, LALSA for our Latinx students, Lambda for our LGBTQ+ students, MELSA for our Middle Eastern students, NALSA for our Indigenous students, and lastly, SALSA for our South Asian law students.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elaine. I am the other half of Wahanas with Shineri. So some of the programming events that Shineri alluded to include our Wahanas Retreat, which precedes the law school's official orientation. And it really provides an opportunity for students to interact with diverse alumni and students for the scoop on how to maintain that type of authenticity as a law student. And a few other staples of our monthly workshops that provide students with resources to apply for summer jobs, as well as prepare for classes and finals. And we also have a resume review program and a mock interview program ahead of the 2L OCI, which you guys will all get to learn more about later.
Now that we've talked about what Wahanas does, Elaine and I would be remiss to not use this opportunity to tell you what Wahanas and its affinity organizations mean to us. I am unsure if many of you have heard of Verna Myers, but she has a quote analogizing diversity and inclusion to being invited to a party and then being invited to dance. I think it's a great analogy and it speaks to what Wahanas means and has done for me, but I'm going to add a little twist to her quote. Diversity is being invited to the party, inclusion is being allowed to dance, but equity is ensuring that you are prepared for the dance floor so that you don't make a fool out of yourself. In my 3 years at BC, Wahanas and its affiliated organizations has done all of that with their respective programming, while also providing me with a safe space and community of people that want to see each other succeed, I apologize. An example I'll share to highlight this is that when I was in your shoes in determining whether I made the right choice or if this was the choice to even consider, I heard a student talk about how BALSA created a GoFundMe account for them. And what was big about this was that, one, it takes a lot for someone to share that they need assistance, but it also takes a lot for a community to say, we got you. And that's exactly what they did. They created that GoFundMe account to provide that additional financial support. And I can say that while I've been here, that the student's anecdote of that supportive community did not just disappear when he graduated or when his peers graduated, but it still remains at the school. And that sometimes is seen as whether that's encouraging or making sure that we eat. I think sometimes at law school, we forget to do so. And then another aspect of it is also advocating on our behalf on anything that's going wrong in the world that we want to speak of or we want to see the community talk about. Having experienced this community, I joined BALSA's leadership as well as Wahana's to kind of ensure that that safe space I got to experience continues to be replicated for those after me.
And I want to go ahead and echo Shineri's sentiment on this. Part of the big choice when I got to decide to attend BC Law was the diversity and the welcoming nature of the students and the administration during the process, because I know this is all a very difficult process for you guys, especially going through it in COVID. And so I can guarantee that with Wahana's support and all of the affinity groups that we have listed below, you guys would have an awesome time, very inclusive and very diverse.
Thank you, Chineri and Elaine. At this time, we'd like to open it up to any questions that you all may have. Please use the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen to enter any questions that we can answer for you at this time.
So we actually received a question that kind of talks about, and me and Elaine speaking about Lahanas and how it's student-led, what exactly does the school do to support us in this and actually ensure that the DEI efforts are not just organization-based, but also coming from administration. And so with that, I'm gonna let Elaine speak a little bit about some of the things that we've seen some of the organizations do.
So some of the programs that is held by a lot of the affinity groups is to bring attention to the cultural diversity that we bring on campus. So we have a program that's especially kind of fun is this food tasting program where all of the different affinity clubs bring in their cultural types of food and you get to kind of experience the other person's culture while in the law school environment because in person, normally we would do these in these like big law school hallways, which is always very fun. And I know that APALSA, the Asian Pacific group, does a judicial internship review, which is really helpful because as a 1L, everything could be very overwhelming, but they take you through it very step by step. And another group that is not a Lahanas group, but is the Public Interest Law Foundation at BC Law, has recently made public interest stipends for students who are interested in doing racial justice work over the summer. So these are all different types of programs that we have brought to campus to highlight the diversity that we have. And Shineri, if you have anything to add to that list.
And I think I'd just add that the law school in general is, as Dean Rougeau mentioned earlier, really ready to have this conversation. They've created committees to talk about this. We've created webinars and town halls to make sure that not only do the students feel community, but that also the professors, the staff, everyone's hearing of that stuff and is able to address that within their own lives and also come back together in a big group.
I see a question from Kelsey Blake. Why did you choose BC Law? Shineri, if you want to go ahead and go first and I'll follow.
Sure. So I will say a lot of it came down to that anecdote I shared about a Black student who talked about the community experience that he had here. So it was that part. And then another, I guess, little funny anecdote is that I was actually selected to go to BC undergrad and I said no to go to my alma mater. And I said, if BC Law or BC as an institution is crazy enough to want me again after I rejected them, this may be the choice and this may be the sign to come back. So that's why I chose BC Law.
I chose BC Law because I think that, especially going into graduate school, there is an understanding that we're not going to professional school to make friends. We're going there to make a network, which is true. But I also found that at BC Law, you find a community of friends that supports and takes care of each other. And I'm not sure if you guys heard that BC Law is kind of like the Disneyland of law school. And I definitely think that that rings true because we work hard, but we also make sure that, we take time to step back and look at the lives that we have aside from just law school, which sometimes could be difficult, especially heading into final season. And everyone's kind of in the library in their little cubicles. But with the community that is at BC Law, it's going to be an experience that I don't think any other law school can offer. And so that was my decision. And that's how I made my decision to come to BC Law. And I do not regret it. I absolutely love it here. And we have another question that says, is there a mentorship program of some sort? Shineri?
So we do have a lot of collaboration with the undergrad organization of Wahana. But with that as well, I think there's always many ways that we can improve on those mentorships, especially outside of Boston, because I think it exists very much so here because we're all together in this space. But there's definitely more. And I know that all of the orgs do their own outreaching to different law bar associations that do have that mentorship already existing with high schoolers and undergrad students as well.
And we have a question from Shandana. It says, how is Lahanas working, especially during the time of COVID? And I can go ahead and answer this. I feel like at Lahanas, we are trying really hard to keep that sense of community in a virtual setting, which can be hard when you're not seeing your friends or your colleagues in person. That being said, we had a virtual paint night, which was super successful. And we really got to come together as a Lahanas community, paint, talk, and share each other's pictures and drawings, which, some were not as successful as the others, but it was still a super fun experience just to kind of relax. And we did it right before finals. And so it was kind of like a breath of relief before we kind of got into that grind. And there are a lot of other events that the affinity groups are putting on as well. Like Apulsa recently posted on Facebook that they're doing these little care packages in light of the Lunar New Year of I think it's the year of the ox. And so you can go pick up these care packages. And so I feel like as a community, we are still really trying to make sure that the incoming students or the 1Ls are feeling included in this virtual setting. And also, like Shaneri had mentioned before, over the summer when COVID was at its peak, there was a COVID funding program for students who needed an extra stipend or funding to get through these hard times, because I know that this is not easy for a lot of us. And so that's kind of how Wahanas has been approaching the COVID situation. And there is another question. It says, how is Boston as a city itself, Shaneri? Shaneri has another year in Boston, so I'm going to let her go ahead and answer that.
So I guess to preface, I come from New York City, Queens to be more specific. And so when I entered Boston, I was just like, this is very different. And I think sometimes we don't recognize too that where the school is actually located is in Newton. And so a lot of the interaction that we do have with Boston is when it comes down to networking events, when they're in person, but also when you want to go outside and just kind of see the world. For me, Queens is a little bit more diverse as a place that I've grown up to. And me knowing that, and then me experiencing a few months in Boston, I kind of made it my mission to kind of meet other people that are not from the law school, but are actually just in the community of Boston, of marginalized backgrounds, of whatever that sort that may look like. And they have been a resource to me. They've told me where to go to get my hair done, amongst other things. So it's definitely been a resource. I think Boston is a place that's building, and it's time for change, and it's working towards that.
A question from Brandon is, how is the relationship between the law students and administration? I can go ahead and speak to this because I recently just went through OCI, which, in the pandemic setting. Oh, so the OCI, for those that don't know, is the on-campus recruiting session that all the so in your 2L summer, or that summer between your 1L and 2 year, it's kind of a rite of passage, I would say, for all law students. You kind of have to go through this recruitment process, and it could be very stressful for most students. But I think I really felt the support from the administration during that period, because they would constantly reach out, ask us to do resume reviews with them. If anybody had questions, they would have Zoom links open from 9 to 5 so students can go in and ask questions. They did mock interview programs. And during these COVID times, mental health is also very important. And Boston College opened a virtual mental health support center, so students can come in whenever they feel like, at no cost, to speak with someone to kind of seek that help if they were having a hard time going through it alone. And another thing is that the administration, especially the career service office, really makes sure that students feel prepared going into the legal profession. So I can definitely say that the administration supports its students. And, Lisa just started, and I just can't wait to see what type of work we can do with her and the interactions that we're going to have with the rest of the student body.
I'd just like to jump in and add one quick thing, Elaine. Thank you. Elaine is right. I am a new start to the BC Law community, and it's been a wonderful and a warm welcome. And I think one of the unique things is that the students are sitting on committees with faculty, with staff, and engaging in the conversation. It's a very responsive community. So many of the organizations and committees that were formed based on diversity, equity, and inclusion have been based on ongoing conversations amongst the students, staff, and faculty, which I think is something that's very important to make sure that the students have a voice in all the decisions that are made and really creating the kind of community that they're proud to be a part of. So I think that's something that's so special about Boston College Law.
Thank you, Lisa. I also very much echo that sentiment. And so, Shaniri, Mahathi asks, what is something you wish you knew you were first starting out at BC Law?
That's a hard question. But I think it's really just to have grace with yourself. I think this is new for everybody. We are coming either straight through or a couple years after undergrad. It's not the same. Everyone is in a new boat of trying to navigate what is law school, what does it mean to be a part of the system, whatever that may look like, but what does it also mean to bring your whole self in that space and change? And I think you may hear a lot about imposter syndrome and not thinking that you deserve to be here or that you should be here. And so I think having that grace, and maybe even there was an exercise that I learned my second year rather than my first year, but write down why you want to go to law school and keep it near so that when you do go through those hard times, it's something that reminds you that this is why I'm doing it for. And it's okay also if that reason changes.
I totally agree with Shaniri. Having that reason and remembering why you chose law school and why you are here can really help you steady yourself when you are going through obstacles or challenges and really questioning, you know, did I make the right decision? It can be hard, but if you have that reason and you keep it near, you really can get through it. The next question that we have is from Madeline Hicks. It says, how engaged are the LGBTQ+ organizations on campus? Shaniri, do you want to go ahead and answer that?
Yeah, so I would definitely say, to preface, that I do not identify within the Lambdas category. However, you will definitely hear more about their experiences if you join their breakout room later after this. But they're actually very active on campus. I've seen the leaders, if something goes wrong or if students feel any type of microaggression, the leaders have advocated for their behalf, went to that professor and said, hey, maybe we should talk about this, or how can we think of changing the cases that are traditionally told? And I think they're a great addition to Wahanas and making sure that we keep ourselves on our toes and recognizing we are going to practice in a law that we want to see and practice in a society that we want to become.
Thank you, Shaniri. So another question is by Brianna Jordan. It says, how has the faculty-student relationship been impacted during COVID? I can try answering this one. I would say not much. They open virtual Zoom sessions where you can walk into your office hours. So the level of interaction is all still there. If you want to get to know your professors on a personal level, you can totally still do that. And in terms of if you feel as if like you are like getting behind in schoolwork or have any questions regarding, you know, academic success, we also have a tutor program, which is all also in a virtual setting where you can log into the career academic service account, and you can go ahead and make an appointment with any tutor that you would like to speak to Of course, you have your TAs for each individual classes, but you can also do that. So a lot of the experience and opportunities that you would have had on campus translates very well in a virtual setting. So despite the fact that we are going through this in a COVID setting, I would say that the interactions with professors, with academic career services, or academic success peers, none of that has been impacted in any dramatic way where I saw that it was impacting the way that I studied. Still very much, good to go, which I think Boston College Law really handled well. So someone asked, if a law student lives off campus, how is the commute to law school, and is it hard to drive to and from the school? Shineri, do you want to go ahead and answer that?
So there is actually a shuttle that the law school offers that hits certain spots of Commonwealth Avenue. So that would just be something that when people are thinking of moving into Chestnut Hill area, Boston area, Newton area, is figuring out if that shuttle runs along where you're living. And if you were to take that shuttle, then that shuttle is about 10 to 15 minutes, depending on where you start to get to the law school. Otherwise, parking is available. You just have to pay to park, but it's pretty accessible campus to get to on that end.
I agree. I also live off of campus, and you can get to and from. The shuttles run pretty often, so we are all good on that end. So there's a question, what accommodations did BC Law make to help students with their physical and emotional well-being during COVID? Yes, this is a very good question. Right now, the way that the schools are held, the way that the classes are held is in a hybrid version. So you can choose to take virtual, but you can also choose to go in person if you'd like. But if you're uncomfortable in an in-person setting, you can fill out a form that says you're going to take this course virtually, and the teachers would actually have the in-person class and have the Zoom on at the front of the class. So you're still able to get the same experience as if you were in the class. So if you don't feel comfortable coming onto campus, there was that type of accommodation. In addition, I guess if you're from a hot state like myself, California, you get tested every week and on random. And every time you're tested negative, you get a maroon Boston College Law band that you wear on your wrist, just to make sure that everyone is in a safe environment and you know that the next door neighbor is not sick. And for the emotional well-being, like I mentioned before, the BC law has implemented the mental well-being healthcare hotline, where you can call in at no cost to talk with someone, speak with someone about your coursework or anything that you really want related to mental health. And it looks like we are closing in on the time. Lisa, if you had anything that you wanted to mention at the end.
Thanks, Elaine. Thanks, Chineri. I did want to add as well, I know there are a couple questions that came in about our first generation students group. There is a first generation professionals group here at BC Law, and they are very active. We're working closely with the Career Services Office, and I'm actually going to be working with that group as well to help support them and make sure that they have all the resources that they need. We were actually just having a conversation about the importance of connecting them with alums who have graduated, who identify as first generation students, because there's a wealth of knowledge within that group as well that we would like to make sure is kind of resonant within our student community. So we do have an active first gen group, and we are looking forward to welcoming more first gen students into the Boston Law community so we can better support you here as well. I'm just going to take a quick peek at the chat again to see if there are any additional questions that have come up. I think we have time for maybe 2 more questions. One, I guess, would be for both of you, Chineri and Elaine. Has Wahanas helped you with finding or securing career opportunities?
I definitely would say yes. I think this kind of goes to that little analogy that I was referencing earlier about being able to be invited to the party, dancing, and the tools to kind of make sure that you don't look like a fool. And Wahanas has definitely helped with that, whether it be through the resume review program or through the mock interview program, in which they kind of what Lahanas essentially does is they look over your resume and they give you some edits to make sure that it's ready to apply. And then from there, there's a mock interview program where we call on alumni, but also hiring professionals in the Boston area. And also, given the remote aspect, you get to kind of reach on some other people outside of the state. And they kind of just do mock interviews with you so that you're ready for an actual interview process. And in addition to that, they send newsletters that talk about job opportunities that are available and how to jump on those activities.
Yeah, I think I echo everything that Shaneri just said. And I feel like the Lahanas group is very tight knit. So if you ever need advice from an alumni or a 2L or a 3L, everyone is definitely here for you, especially going through the career process. And there's a lot of outside resources that we also bring into Lahanas. If any student wanted to get in touch with a certain firm, a certain group, in-house counsel, we have those opportunities available. And we make sure to kind of cater to the 1L group, the population in particular, because we know that transition might not be easy for some of us. So Lahanas has really helped me in finding my job because of the mentorship. And Shaneri is like my mentor too. So going through this OCI, I asked her a lot of questions because it was a little scary. And so the Lahanas group and the mentors are really here for the 1Ls and the students and the incoming students.
And one more piece, I know we had another question about first gen as well. Our big interest right now is really having collaborative events. There's so many intersections in people's identity, and that's something that we are continuously working on supporting here at BC Law. Members of one group within Lahanas, maybe members of other groups, maybe members of the first gen group. So we're actually, thinking about the ways in which we can continue to work together to strengthen those relationships and also create opportunities for members of these communities to have a larger voice on, within the community as a campus, so that everybody feels as though they can bring their full selves to campus and to engage with the work that they're learning, in the classroom or while they're on externships, so that they can continue to educate the entire being and care for the entire being, as Dean Rougeau mentioned earlier. I think we have time for one last question. Sorry, there was just a flurry that came in at the end. I'm so sorry about that. One for Chineri and Elaine, can you talk a little bit about how often the student groups kind of meet and what do those collaborations look like? I know you mentioned a little bit earlier, but I think it would just be a little bit helpful for one of the questions that we just received in the chat.
Yeah, of course. So Lahanas actually meets with the affinity organizations quite frequently, kind of just to hear what exactly are the specific orgs' needs, what do their members want, what do they want to see on campus, and then our aim from there is kind of just to advocate on that behalf. As I mentioned as well earlier, is that our workshops and all the events that we do are actually catered to all of the group. So it's almost in some ways a big collaboration. An event that we did last year that probably won't be replicated in the same way this year because of COVID was we actually had a Lahanas trivia night. And with that, we all went to a bar and we just had a trivia night where we went through different topics, which actually came from each affinity organization, giving history and fun facts that you kind of just had to guess. And so that was one opportunity where we did that. Then this year, as Elaine mentioned earlier, we did the paint night and we still have more that we're trying to do this semester.
Thanks so much. Well, I'm sorry, but we're out of time for today. So that's all we have at the moment. We do have some student leaders who will be available and we will be emailing out the contact information so that you all can be in touch with them as well. At this time, we'd like to invite you to join our individual meeting sessions with representatives from our Lahanas student organizations. As I mentioned, there won't be any faculty or staff in these smaller sessions, as we want you to speak directly with students to get a chance to hear from them about what it's like to be a member of the Boston College Law School community. We're posting these links in the Zoom meetings, in the Zoom chat right now. So you'll be able to access them there if you didn't take note of them earlier. And the student leaders will be in their meeting sessions from 3:45 until 4:30 p.m. So please feel free to meet with students from the groups with which you identify or you're interested in being a part of from now until then. We just want to say thank you again for joining us. We are so excited to host you for this webinar, and we are always available to you via email or social media if you want to connect with us on LinkedIn as well to answer any additional questions. My own and the other organization leaders' contact information will also be posted in the chat, so you can take note of that as well and be in touch. We wish you the very, very best of luck as you are in your decision-making process for law school, and we certainly hope that we will see many, many of you join us in the Boston College Law School community come fall. Again, we're more than happy to reach out to you with any answers to questions that you may have, and we really hope that you take this time to engage with us. Thank you so much for joining us today. We wish you the best of luck, and we hope you enjoy the individual meetings as well. Take good care. Bye-bye.